Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am just Mike. You are watching and you are listening to episode number 73 of the Rock Out Wild Show, where it is not just a show, it is a way of life. Now, if you are new to this video and if you are new to this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below this very video. You can also like or dislike however you want to rate this episode of the Rock Out Wild Show, and share this episode and share this video on all of your social media platforms, from your Facebook to your YouTube to your X to your Instagram, what have you. Whatever social media site you use more often than most, share episode number 73 on the Rock Out Wild Show everywhere that you know, and tell everyone what the Rock Out Wild Show is all about. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your acquaintances. Let everyone know what the Rock Out Wild Show is. And again, I am your host, just Mike. As you see from the title of this very episode, I'm going to go over an article that will only benefit me, but will also benefit other people who want to start a podcast as well. I have found an article from Buzzprout not too long ago, and it is a step-by-step guide in this year, 2026, on how to start a podcast. I think some of these tips might help a lot of you watching this right now. Also, we're going to take a look at, on this day, for June the 17th, in the world of film and television, wrestling and music. We're going to skip sports for this episode, and we'll bring back sports for the episode after. But to kick things off for episode number 73 of the Rock Out Wild Show, I'm going to react to an old movie review of mine. Now, before I do, I'm going to open up the webcam and say hi to everyone watching this episode all around the world. How are you all doing? Well, it is that time, isn't it? I'm going to react to an old movie review of mine, a movie called Focus. This movie stars Margot Robbie and I can't even say this with a straight face. This movie stars Margot Robbie and Will Smith. Yes, I'm reacting to a movie starring Margot Robbie and Will Smith. Now, keep in mind, this is pre-slap. This movie came out 11 years ago, so he didn't have that stain on his legacy then. Just keep that in mind as I review this movie. I know it's hard to do, but focus, please. Just focus. No pun intended. I heard this movie freaking slaps 11 years later. Oh my God. I'm all about jokes here tonight, folks. So let's get this party started, shall we? Let's react to Focus from 2015. So I am going to plug these headphones in, turn up the volume, and I will present share screen. And we'll go to the review, make sure the audio is on, and let's react. And let's go full screen with this. In 3, 2, 1, action.
This movie kind of makes you feel paranoid. You just never know you're going to bump into total strangers who are going to steal your wallet. I better keep mine safe so no one finds it. There. Alright, on with the review.
I think I know how I done that. Actually, what I meant was I think I know where this review is actually headed.
Hello, all movie fans in the movieverse. Welcome to the Mike McRuck Movie Review Show. Right now, I'm going to review Focus. And this movie is about a wealthy con man who is great at what he does and at conning people. And one night, he bumps into a woman who she steals from him, and he figures it out. And now she wants to learn the ropes on how to be a con man, or in this case, a con woman. And this movie stars Will Smith and Margot Robbie, who I thought worked well together. together. They both have great chemistry.
Yep.
And
They
thank
do.
God that Will Smith is back. Well, sort of. He was half serious and half Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. At
Right.
least we got the not so serious Will Smith side of him. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to remember that abomination that was After Earth.
No, not
And the big
really.
plus in this movie is that thank God his son wasn't in it.
Yes.
And you also
Yes.
have Margot Robbie in this movie, who she was really beautiful. She
Oh,
practically
gorgeous.
glows on screen,
Love
and
Margot
she could
Robbie.
back it up with her acting as well. And like I said earlier, they both work well together. They have great chemistry, and you can buy the relationship, and it really feels natural instead of forced. You know, we get that from previous movies this year, from 50 Shades of Grey and Black Cat. So it's nice and refreshing that we have a romantic relationship that actually feels natural instead of, you know, being shoved down your throat. So that's
Yeah.
a big plus when
No
it
doubt.
comes to the two main leads in this movie. And with that being said, also what I really liked about this movie is the cinematography. The movie felt really good. It had that real cool urban vibe throughout the entire atmosphere throughout this movie, and I really dug that. It was a well directed and well shot type of movie where
I'm gonna pause in the middle. I totally forgot to make a prediction on the points that I gave this. I think with this movie, Focus, I was kind of positive, like the way I am speaking. My prediction is maybe a 71. I'm going to guess a 71 out of 100, but we'll see.
it really showed the elements of the city very well.
Yeah.
And the first half of the movie was actually pretty good because of how Will Smith was teaching Margot Robbie's character how to be a con woman. You know, it's always about the hands, where, you know, you see
Mhm.
one hand go this way, but the other hand is going in a completely different direction to throw you off, and it's back and forth. And it's really, really cool. You know, it's kind of like boot camp only in conning. You know, it's
Mhm.
one of those movies where, you know, if the wrong person saw this movie, you know, they'll get too many ideas. So it's that type of movie. So I really like the first half of the movie.
Mhm.
And once the second half came on, and as the movie progressed, the
As the
movie
movie
kind
went
of
on.
felt slower and less interesting. You know, it felt like one of those movies where it was chopped up into two different movies, and it was the less interesting sequel. I'm not saying the second half was not as good as the first half. I'm just saying that the second half was just a lot more, I mean, a lot less interesting than the first half. But I can understand that in order to progress the movie, you know, and ante up the stakes, you know, you ante up the story and the characters
That's right. Yep.
and
That's
their
right.
direction
Yep.
in this movie, you can only move forward instead of backwards because that would be
True.
counterproductive. So
Very
I
true.
was fine with what they did here.
Mhm.
I think that this movie was
So I'm going to pause. I think what I meant to say there is that the pacing was off. I think that in hindsight, looking at this review, I think what I'm trying to get at is that the pacing in the first half of the movie felt really quick and rushed, whereas the pace in the second half felt like it was slow going and slow moving. It's like two different things all together. It's kind of like that. Anyway, let's continue.
getting a little convoluted every now and then.
Convoluted
You know, it had too many twists and
a little bit,
turns.
a little bit.
And but you know what? I expected that because you
Yep,
know it's a movie about conning
yep,
and manipulating people
yep.
and other things like that of that nature. So yeah, what can you do? But I kind of enjoyed this movie. You know, this movie could have been a lot more fun, but it was entertaining for the most part. And it got intense in some scenes, you know, where you're kind of left hanging on the edge of your seat,
Yep.
waiting for this certain thing to happen. It does fall into some cliches, but like I said, it's a nice, entertaining matinee type of movie
Right.
that I would recommend if you want to see.
Yep.
So I will say Focus delivered 66
Oh,
points out of 100.
not bad.
And if you
A
saw
little
this
off.
movie, what did you think about it? Feel free to leave your comments in the comment section below. Hey, before you leave those comments, The video's still going. Hey, look up here. Focus.
Focus.
And you can also hit that subscribe button down below this video as well to get McRucked.
Yeah, so that was my review for the movie called Focus, starring Margot Robbie and Will Smith. And I actually said that with a straight face. Looking back at this movie in hindsight, I would not watch this, and we all know why. Yes, and it's because of you know who. However, if he didn't have that sting on his legacy at all, I would probably go back and watch it. Sure, if it's on like a TV or if it's on Netflix or something, I go, I remember this movie. Never thought of it for a hot minute in a long time, but I'll flick it on. You know, if that were the case, if he didn't stain his own legacy, but you get what I mean. So, yeah, that was my reaction of the movie Focus, looking back at it in hindsight and looking at my review in my past self. And that's all I have. So, now we are going to get into an installment I like to call On This Day. It's in the segment that you normally see on the Rock Out Wild show. We're going to take a look at film and television first. So let's present, share screen. And let's take a look at what happened on this day for June the 17th in movies and TV history. Back in all the way to 1919, Barney Google, cartoon strip by Billy D. Beck, premieres. In 1954, televised Sente Army McCarthy hearings ends. In 1961, Billy Barnes musical review, Billy Barnes People, starring Ken Berry, Dave Ketchum, and Joanne Worley, closes at the Royal Theatre in New York City after 7 performances. In 1967, Barbra Streisand performs a Happening in Central Park concert in New York City. In 1968, KQEC TV Channel 32 in San Francisco, California begins broadcasting. In 1976, new wave band Blondie releases their debut single Ex-Offender, written by Debbie Harry and Gary Valentine. In 1988, Givens family reports Mike Tyson beats his wife, Robin Givens. And yet he is celebrated in the WWE/F, and you wonder why. In 1992, Connecticut Governor Lowell Wicker and WFA and DJ Don Imus change places for one day. In 2017, geez, film and television is full of controversial people already. 2 of them already. Bill Cosby, trial for aggravated indecent assault, declared a mistrial after jurors couldn't reach a verdict. In 2018, The Incredibles 2 set a box office record for an animated release, earning $180 million its opening weekend. In 2019, Michael R. Jackson's musical A Strange Loop opens off-Broadway in New York. Pulitzer Prize for Drama 2020. In 2020, American actor Danny Masterson charged with R-wording 3 women after a 3-year investigation. I remember that like it was yesterday, and it sucks. 2022, Running Up That Hill single Kate Bush goes to #1 on the UK chart, originally released in 1985. The song was featured in sci-fi television show Stranger Things, or as someone else would call it, garbage crap. Shout out to you. Its record 44-year climb to the top also makes Bush 63, the oldest female artist to score a #1. And in 2025, Jurassic World Rebirth, directed by Gareth Edwards and starring Scarlett Johansson, Jonathan Bailey, and Mahershala Ali, premieres in London. Those are all the events for film and television for June the 17th. Then let's take a look at what happened on this day in wrestling for June the 17th in years past. Here we got a picture of Ooh, yeah, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, along with a bunch of people in the picture as well, including Classy Freddie Blassie himself. In 1983, WCCW Wrestling Star Wars was held in Dallas, Texas. Again, shout out to you. In front of 21,000 fans. David Von Erich defeated Jimmy Garvin of the Fabulous Freebirds to win the WCCW Texas Heavyweight Championship. Then, in the main event, Bruiser Brody and Kerry Von Erich took the WCCW American Tag Team titles from the other two Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy. In 1985, two debuts were made at a WWF TV taping in Poughkeepsie, New York, both against Aldo Marino. The first one was a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Terry Funk, who made his mark by attacking the ring attendant before making Mariano submit. The other was Randy Macho Man Savage. During his match against Mariano, nearly every manager came from the back to watch Savage in action. After Savage pinned Mariano, following the two rope elbow drops, Bobby Heenan, Mr. Fuji, Freddie Blassie, Jimmy Hart, and Johnny V all got in the ring to congratulate him on his victory and to offer their services as a manager. And we all know another one of them did. Who did? It was Miss Elizabeth. In 1995, ECW barbed wire hoodies and chokeslams was held in the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In the main event of the show, the Sandman retains the ECW World Heavyweight title against Cactus Jack in a barbed wire match following some controversy. Cactus Jack appears to have the match won because the Sandman can't answer the 10 count. However, Bill Alfonso refuses to acknowledge the win because the title can't change hands under those conditions. The match is restarted. The Sandman chokes Jack with barbed wire and tosses him to the floor. And Alfonso decides that Cactus Jack can't continue and stops the match, giving the Sandman the win. The fans in the arena were not happy with the decision, and Alfonso had to be smuggled out in the boot of a car due to the fans waiting for him with baseball bats outside. Now they will wait for them with guns. That's what would happen. In 1996, in JPW skydiving, J1 was held in Tokyo, Japan. Shiryu Otani defeated Kazuchika Sakuraba to win the vacant UWA World Light Heavyweight Championship. Then later in the show, Jushin Thunder Liger beat Dick Togo to become the British Commonwealth Junior Heavyweight Champion. In the year 2000, when we will make it up to you, at JCW, Monster Slam in Lodi, New Jersey, Inferno defeated Kevin Knight to win the Jersey Championship Wrestling Television title. Also in the year 2000, Bobby Casanova and Brian Fury won the HWA Tag Team titles at the weekly HWA show in Hamilton, Ohio, when they beat Anthony McMurphy and Cody Hawk. In 2006, WXW Fans Appreciation Night was held in Essen, Germany, and it wasn't a good night for Assassin A. First of all, he lost the GSW AWO Extreme World Heavyweight title to Assassin B. Then afterwards, he lost a Loser Leaves Town match to Assassin Invisibilis. Also in the year 2006, in the main event of IWA MS Schools out of Streamwood, Illinois, Toby Klein defeated Trick Davis to become the IWA MS Heavyweight Champion. Also in the year 2006, Hustle Aid was held in Saitama, Japan, in front of 14,012 fans. On the show, the female team of Erica and Margaret, known elsewhere as Aja Kong and Asu Kong respectively, defeated the male team of Ryuja Sa and Raru Sakata to become the Hustle Super Tag Team title champions. In the year 2000, TNA Slammiversary was held at the National Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee, in front of 3,500 fans. And here's a look at what the card was for TNA Slammiversary that year. We're going to continue on. In the year 2011, AAW Day of Defiance was held in Berwyn, Illinois. On the show, Jordan McIntyre and Knight Wagner defeated Brett Kakia and CJ Esperanza to win the AAW Tag Team Championship belts. In 2012, WWE No Way Out was held at the Izod Center in East Rutherford, New Jersey, in front of 10,000 fans. And here's a look at what that card on that show was. You can take a look at it, take a screenshot, take a picture, quickly go through it. We will continue on. In 2012, day one of AJPW 40th anniversary, the year crossover was in Tokyo, Japan. In the main event, Manabu Soya and Takayo Omari defeated Joe Doring and Sia Sanda to win the AJPW World Tag Team titles. In 2016, Shine number 35 took place at the Orpheum in Ybor City, Florida. The main event was a four-way match between Ivelisse, Shine champion Taylor Made, TNA Nago's champion Allison Kay, and Shimmer champion Madison Eagles. The stipulation in the match was that whoever lost the fall would lose their title. Ivelisse won the match after pinning Taylor Made to become the new Shine champion. In 2017, a DWW invasion in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. Pete Dunne beat both Josh Alexander and Psycho Mike in the three-way match to win the DWW title. In 2018, Defiance Built to Destroy was held in Newcastle upon Tyne, England. The Defiance women's title changed hands when Bea Priestley defeated Millie McKenzie. In 2018, WWE Money in the Bank was held in the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois, in front of 15,214 fans. Here's a look at what the card on that show was. You could take a quick look at it as I continue on with this segment here. In 2018, at day two of JPW Kazura Road in Tokyo, Japan, Hiroki Goto defeated Michael Elgin to become the never openweight champion. We have some notable wrestling birthdays here. We have Millie McKenzie. We were just going over her. She was born on this day in the year 2000. Koto Suzuki was born on this day in 1978. Minoru Suzuki was born on this day in 1968. And Michiharu Misawa was born on this day, June the 17th, 1962. And those are all the events that happened on this day in the world of professional wrestling. For the final thing we're going to go over for on this day, for June the 17th, we're going to take a look at the world of music. So on this day in music, June the 17th, 1971, singer-songwriter Carole King began a recording-breaking 15-week run at the top of the U.S. album chart with Tapestry. The hugely influential album, which remained on the Billboard 200 for nearly 6 years, marked a significant shift for King, who spent the first decade of her career behind the scenes as a songwriter for other artists. One of the best-selling albums of all time, Tapestry featured the chart-topping lead singles It's Too Late and I Feel the Earth Move, plus such enduring favorites like You Got a Friend, a #1 hit for James Taylor, and Where You Lead. Long considered to be one of the greatest albums of all time, the multiple Grammy-winning LP was amongst the first 50 titles to be added to the National Recording Registry in 2003. In 2022, thanks to an appearance in Netflix's Stranger Things, we were going over this not too long ago, Kate Bush 1985 single Running Up the Hill returns to the charts, hitting #1 in the UK. The viral phenomenon, which peaked at #3 in the US, also topped the charts in Australia. Switzerland and New Zealand, among others, was also #1 on Billboard's global hit charts. The song's success also broke several UK chart records, including the longest amount of time for a single to reach the top spot. In 1978, You're the One That I Want, a duet from the film Grease, sung by John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, began a 9-week run at the top of the UK pop chart, marking the longest day at number one by any single year. One of the best-selling singles of all time worldwide, the song also hit number one in more than a dozen countries, including the US, Australia, and Israel. In 1976, Blondie released their first single, Ex Offender, the song which led to the New York City band's self-titled debut album, which was originally titled Sex Offender, but was changed at their label's insistence. And in 1978, with Shadow Dancing, Andy Gibb made US chart history as the first solo artist to have 3 singles all reach number one. That is very impressive. The song followed the success of 1977's I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Love Is Thicker Than Water. And we have some birthdays here for the world of music. Born on June 17th, 1946, Barry Manilow. Then we have Greg Rowley from Santana and Journey, who was born on this day in 1947. Born in 1957, we have Philip Chevron from the Pogues. And from Dead Kennedys, Jilla Biafra was born on this day in 1958. Then we have Kevin Thornton from Color Me Bad, who was born on this day in 1969. And born on June 17th, 1987, Kendrick Lamar. Those are all the events that happened on this day in the world of music for June the 17th. And I do believe it is about that time for the main event for episode number 73 of the Rock Out Wild Show. And I am going to start by saying this. If you are someone who wants to start a YouTube podcast like me, this will be the topic for you. Now, before I get into this article right here, I'm going to give a little bit of advice as I go along with the article, and I'm also going to give a little bit of advice as I start this off. I've learned this from a very, very good source and someone who I watch regularly. Chris Van Vliet made a really, really good quote. He said, the best thing about podcasting is that anybody can do it. And the worst thing about podcasting is that anybody can do it. That will start off with that. Let's go to the article. That is this main event of this episode 73. This article came from Buzzprout at the beginning of 2026. And I think right now is a good time to do this article because I'm 73 episodes in. I have 73 weeks into this podcast. I think it's only fitting for me that I go over this article. So let's share screen, and let's see what this article reads. So this was last updated on January the 2nd, 2026 anyway. So I'm going to say that this article was uploaded then. And the title here, How to Start a Podcast, Complete Step-by-Step Guide. And it says here, launching a podcast can feel overwhelming if you're doing it by yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. Since 2009, Buzzprout has helped over 400,000 podcasters start their shows, giving us a clear view of what works and which early mistakes slows creators down. Now, I never use Buzzprout. I use other things. I use StreamYard, other pieces of software. This is just an article that I'm going over, but I think as I was going through this before I hit record, the tips on here I think are really, really good, even for beginners and even for people who are experts at podcasting. So anybody can look at this as I go along here. So let's look at the table of contents. It's how to start a podcast in 10 days. In 10 steps, I mean. How to start a podcast in 10 steps. Free podcast resources and frequently asked questions. And here we go here. So I'm not going to click on the videos, but I'm just going to read what's here. So the first thing that's on here, develop a podcast concept. Choosing the right podcast concept for your new podcast is a big part of attracting the right listeners and staying committed to your show. Follow these tips to narrow your niche and clarify your message. Like me, I'm doing a variety show, and this is all about variety. This is all about wrestling, sports, music, film, television, what have you. This is a variety package where you get on the Rock Out Wild show. Says here, define your goals. Not having a clear goal for the podcast is one of the biggest mistakes new creators make. They end up chasing other people's goals, which ultimately leads to burnout. Me, I don't need to learn, worry about burnout because I do this when I want, and it's all pre-recorded. I don't have to worry about getting a podcast out there very last minute. So that's why I avoid stuff like burnout and that I have to do it like I'm forced to. No, I'm always having fun recording these episodes. And start by answering, what do you want to start a podcast? Or no, why do you want to start a podcast? Now, it is important to know your why, even if it's to have fun with your friends. Some good reasons for starting a podcast are to generate leads for a business, be recognized as an industry leader, to share an important message, to explore your favorite hobby. Now, mine out of those four options is to explore my favorite hobby, and that's podcasting. I mean, I have a history of doing podcasts. I've done about close to 100. Well, not quite 100, but I've done a good number of shows. I've done 40 episodes of The Rapture, The Psychopathic Corner, Open Mic Nights. So I have that background in my favorite hobby. And the reason why I love doing what I do is as an escape from reality. Like anything, like any type of entertainment. It's like watching wrestling, you're escaping from reality. This is why I like recording episodes like this. Also says here, podcasting has a lot of benefits for brand and businesses, but it's important to be realistic about your goals. While he's seen a few podcasters shoot to fame, most reach a small target audience that they build over time. That would be what I do. Pick a podcast theme or topic. You should feel excited to regularly discuss and research your podcast topic. The more you enjoy your topic, the less likely your experience pod fades, and that's exactly what I do. Right now, I'm doing research on Canadian stuff for episode 75, so I might do a Canadian themed type episode for Canada Day in a few weeks. So that's one thing I like enjoying doing. Once you have some ideas, do some market research to survey the competition in your genre. Like, say, for example, if someone is doing movie reviews and you see other people do movie reviews, you figure, okay, what can I do that's different in the world of movies? So, you do different things. You do lists, what have you, tier lists, what have you. Search your show's topic in Apple Podcasts. Listen to a few episodes and ask yourself, what could you do differently? There's always a unique angle or perspective to offer. And here's a pro tip. To test out your own podcast concept, try to come up with 10 episode ideas. If ideas don't come easily, you might want to change topics. That's what I did. Before I recorded my very first episode, I had a list of topics that I wanted to go over, and some of it was music, some of it was personal, and then you get into movies and television and that sorts of stuff. Like I had a lot of ideas, probably about 10. Then it says here, make it specific. When you zero in on a niche, you attract a more specific and engaged audience. Podcasts that appeal to a broad audience can end up reaching fewer people. Podcasts, people are also more likely to recommend a niche podcast to a friend than a generic one. To make your podcast niche, focus on a subcategory or subdemographic. Drill down on what makes your podcast different. What unique perspective can you bring to your podcast topic? Like, for example, with me, I go over articles. That's one of the big things that I enjoy doing. And the other thing, I'll sometimes throw in album reviews and a list and other things like that, like ranking albums and things of that nature. Music albums, to say the least. Examples of finding a niche now: mental health for lawyers, drones, drone racing, nutrition for diabetics, personality tests, uh, Enneagram in the workplace, and business, how to start a nonprofit, things of that nature. Then we get into name your podcasts. Your podcast name is a core part of your brand. It makes a strong first impression on listeners and sets the tone for your podcast. Uh, when I came up with the Rock Out Wild show, that was not my original idea that I had. I had other ideas before I came up with this. I had stuff like the Outsiders podcast, or the podcast for the soul, or a soul podcast, or something that has to do with soul, the minds, the heart, or whatever, stuff like that. But then I realized I wanted to do a variety of stuff, like a variety of topics, like going over this article. So I started to think, what are some good podcast names that have a good variety type to it? I have like a bunch of other ideas as well, like a variety pack, like a variety pack podcast. But I settled with the Rock Out Wild show, and how I came up with that. If you don't know, Rock Out Wild is my username of my very first YouTube channel, which is still active. So that's why I came up with the Rock Out Wild show. It stands out. No one uses it. It's niche. It's my own name. It's my own brand. And no one else could use it because I'm the star of the show. Damn it. Anyway, let's continue on. So it's important to have a clear and concise name for your podcast. Make your title specific. A show titled Our Community Bulletin is too vague to attract many subscribers, no matter how compelling the content. And pay close attention to the title, as Apple Podcasts use the field for search. It says here, podcast names should have the following characteristics: specific and succinct, available, memorable, similar to your business name or brand. The Rock Out Wild show, I think, sticks out like a lot of them. Use Buzzprout's podcast name generator to brainstorm the perfect name for your podcast. That's another good idea, too, is to brainstorm a bunch of ideas, come up with a few of them, narrow it down, come up with one. Then once you have the title in mind, run it through a name checker to ensure the social media accounts and domains are available. You also don't want to use someone else's podcast name. That is very true. That's your pro tip. Don't create podcast artwork yet. You don't tweak your podcast concept before you release your episodes, and you don't want to have to redo your artwork. That is very true. With me, I use a website for my artwork, for thumbnails and things of that nature. Just to bring up the brand a little bit. And then it says here, choose your podcast format. Your format should complement your podcast and feel sustainable. Ask yourself, what gives you energy? Do you love connecting with podcast guests, or do you feel best going solo? Me, I feel best going solo. That's why I love doing and recording these episodes going solo, because I don't have to rely on anybody to be here on time to record a show. That's the beauty of it going solo. If you want to do guests, that's fine. That's up to you, but that's just what I do. If you choose to have co-hosts, try to keep your group small. Podcasting with more than 2 or 3 people makes scheduling a challenge, just like I said. Keep in mind that some shows require more production than others. For instance, fiction podcasts usually require more editing than interview podcasts. Me, I don't edit my podcasts at all. These are straight shoot, one take. I record, finish, upload. That's the Rock Out Wild show. There are some there are some common podcast formats. Interview podcasts. That's a thing I would like to do eventually, sometime in the future, is to do interviews on my show. Co-hosted podcasts, scripted nonfiction, news recap, educational podcasts, scripted fiction. And the funny thing is that my original idea of the concept of the Rock Out World show is to do a news recap. But what happened was I completely made a complete 180 and decided to do things like on this day in the world of film and television and that sorts of stuff, just to do something like just tweak it a little bit and also react to my past self. That's something I love to do as well. So that's my format. It's react to my past self, do on this day, and then do the main event. That's my concept, and one that I mainly stick to. Optimal podcast episode length. Now, make your episodes as long as they need to be and no longer. Some podcasts are less than 5 minutes long, and others have episodes the length of a short audiobook. And here are the most common episode durations: less than 10 minutes, 14%, 10 to 20 minutes, 15%, 20 to 40 minutes, 31%, which is probably the most common. That's why it's highlighted yellow there. Or 40 to 60 minutes, 22%, over 60 minutes, 7%. I tend to fall between those last three right there, over 60 minutes. Sometimes I do go over, but I like to keep it between 40 to 60 minutes, that 22%. That's mainly my sweet spot in the terms of podcasting on a normal regular show. Then we get into podcast publishing schedule. Now, podcasts can be a full-time job or something you do on the side. For me, it's something I do on the side, and I do it for fun. You might decide to publish daily or every 2 years, like Serial. We recommend publishing once a week, which is what I have been doing since 2025, to develop a connection with listeners and create the habit of producing consistent content. These are the most common publishing frequencies. Now, 0 to 2 days, 7%, 3 to 7 days, 36%, 8 to 14 days, that's why it's highlighted yellow, 39%, 15 to 29 days, 17%, and over 30 days, 1%. Now, when I was doing podcasts like Open Mic Night, The Rapture, and The Psychopathic Corner, there was always a big gap between episodes. Sometimes I would wait a week or a month or a few weeks. It's like it was all over the place. But with the Rock on Wild show, where I'm consistently putting something out there, I only miss a couple of weeks. One because I was in Florida, and the other because I was sick. But yeah, that is something to do. Pick a day and do a podcast. It could be any day. It could be on a Saturday. If you want to record your episode, or if you want to do a live, do it on a Saturday and put it on every Saturday. Me, I do it on Wednesdays, and the reason why I like to do it on Wednesdays is because it's right in the middle of the week. Then we get into set up podcast recording equipment. You don't have to buy expensive podcast equipment to have good audio. That is very true. Lots of popular podcasts have basic setup. Let's review what to look for in a podcast microphone. Then we'll make our top podcast equipment recommendations. Now, before I go on here, the equipment that I use is this laptop that I'm looking at right now. The webcam that's just right above it has what you would call it on it, a stand. Then you got the webcam, and I have a Yeti Nano microphone so that the audio can come out nice and clean. Now, if I record this episode just by using the audio on the laptop, it's not going to come out great. It's going to sound crappy at every moment. But when I record on this microphone, I was just tapping on it. It's amazing. So best podcast microphones. I'm not going to play the video here, but a good podcast mic enhances your audio quality makes editing easier. Less background noise in your recording means less editing on the back end. Again, I don't edit, I don't need to. Here's a few things to consider before getting your first podcast mic. Our top recommendation, the Samsung Q2U, which you can buy on Amazon for about $70. Dynamic microphones work best for podcasting. They pick up lower frequencies and have less sensitivity. This means you'll have less background noise to edit out later. Now, when I use the Yeti Nano on StreamYard, there's an option in StreamYard where you can check the box to have less background noise. So that's how I do it. Condenser mics have more sensitivity and pick up a wider range of frequencies. Sensitivity is good for recording music, but isn't ideal for spoken word. We get into XLR or USB. Podcast mics have two types of connections, XRL or USB. I chose the USB for mine. And since your XLR mic gives you maximum flexibility, there are a lot of XLR mics to choose from, and they usually have a long life. But XLR mics require an interface or a mixer to hook up. This can get expensive for beginners. So don't use an XRL if you're starting to do a podcast. Use a USB like me. USB microphones are less expensive and plug directly into your computer. You can also run it through an interface if you record with multiple people. USB mics are affordable, practical, and sound great. The mic is the best option. This mic is the best option for the majority of podcasters. Absolutely. And we get into top mic recommendations: the Samsung Q2U, the Pod mic, which is $150, and the Shure SM7B, which is $400. That is expensive. We get into example podcast setups. One person setup, $70, the Samsung Q2U, any headphones you already have. Two-person setup, which is $400, the Samsung Q2U, Audio Technica M20X, and a Forkscrite Scarlett 2i2. 3 to 4 person setup, Samsung Q2U, Audio Technica M20X, and the RODE Caster Pro, which is $600. At $150, the Zoom P4 is a concise replacement for the RODE Caster Pro. And there's recommended accessories like a boom arm, a shock mount, a foam ball, or a pop filter. I noticed that a lot of podcasters, when they record their podcast and they show themselves, they usually have like a boom arc, like one of those things that you see high up or maybe like mounted down, and the microphone you see is right in front of their face, that kind of thing. Me, I don't do that. I have my Yeti Nano firmly straight on my desk, and I record from there. Choose your podcast software. Now, once you've recorded your podcast, it's time to make edits, except for me, because I don't do edits. This is where you can structure your episode and optimize audio. Fortunately, podcast editing software is often affordable. There are even some high-quality free podcasting editing tools. So there's that. So any kind of software, OBS, StreamYard, Adobe, if you use Adobe and things of that nature. Remote recording software. If you frequently do remote interviews, you'll need software specifically for long distance recordings. Over the years, I used a ton of different tools, but here's what they would recommend today. Adobe Podcast. Cost, generous free plan, $10 a month for premium, high quality audio recordings. Adobe Podcast is the tool they would use if you're starting a new podcast today. Me, I don't. I just use the microphone, the webcam, StreamYard, or hit record. That's just all. That's really all I need. But these are some of the recommendations. So Adobe Podcast is one. It records each participant locally, automatically uploads the files, and includes a clean transcript based editor. The transcriptions are accurate, and the promotion tools are very easy to use. If you want an all in one solution without a steep learning curve, they would start with Adobe Podcasts. Then we get into Zoom, which I have used only a little bit of Zoom, but not to like talk to people or anything. The cost free, $18 a month, average but much lighter, higher with recommended settings. Most guests have experience with Zoom. Now, Zoom is a go to remote recording tool with good but not great audio quality, and most people already know how to use it. The app's default settings compress audio, but you can improve it by using the best settings for Zoom recordings. And they will recommend turning on the original sound and recording separate tracks at a minimum. Then we get into Descript Rooms, formerly Squadcast. The cost here, $12 a month, studio quality recordings. And it says here, if you want to record video podcasts or need more advanced editing tools, Descript Rooms is the go-to recommendation here. Rooms records each guest locally with high quality audio and video, then uploads it to Descript for editing. Descript's pioneered text based editing for audio, and it makes it easy to edit podcast audio. It's more complicated than Adobe Podcast, but it provides a lot more flexibility if you want advanced editing capabilities. The downside is that since it's browser based, similar to Riverside, reliability can be an issue. So keep in mind with that. It says pro tip, don't use Skype to record your podcast. Skype calls are typically much more compressed and of lower quality than other options. I don't think people use Skype anymore. People use Teams, Microsoft Teams. So thank God for that. Editing software, GarageBand, which is free. Difficulty, a beginner, compatibility, Mac and iOS. Says here GarageBand comes from pre-installed on most Apple computers. If you don't have it, you can easily download it for free. We think GarageBand is a more intuitive interface than Audacity. GarageBand is not available on Windows computers or Android phones. This tutorial can help you learn how to navigate the workspace. Then we have Audacity, and this is free. Difficulty moderate, compatibility Mac, Windows, and Linux. It says here Audacity is free, open source audio editor with pro level features. This DAW is more than enough for podcasters to produce great episodes. Audacity has a steeper learning curve than GarageBand, but they have many Audacity tutorials to help you navigate the platform. Then there's a little bit of that here as well. Then we get into Descript, which is $12 per month. Difficulty moderate, compatibility Mac and Windows. Descript is an all-in-one editing tool that lets you record, transcribe, mix, and edit your audio files like you would a text document. Descript can automatically remove filler words and dub over a phrase with text-to-speech voice cloning. This Descript tutorial shows how to use the video and screen recording features and the in-browser editing suite. Then we got the Hindenburg Pro, which I have heard of. It's $12 a month. The difficulty is moderate, compatibility Mac and Windows. And it says here, Hindenburg is a pro-level audio editing software designed specifically for podcasters and journalists. The workspace features simple tools made for spoken word and automatic options to streamline your workflow. The Hindenburg walkthrough gives you an idea of the workspace. Then we have alternatives, Adobe Audition and Logic Pro. Other podcast software. These tools are required, but can improvise your workflow and help optimize your content. Co-host AI, starting at $10 a month. And it says here, this will allow you to use AI To build out the details of your episodes, they have built-in co-host AI and Buzzprout to make your upload process easier and more streamlined, allowing you to focus more on your episode content. While your episode is processing, co-host AI will be handling the details. Co-host AI will give your episode titles ideas, draft an episode description, define chapters, transcribe your episode with some social content, and even draft a blog post. Me, I do all that manually when I upload it on YouTube. I don't need AI for this. Then you can use that content to build out the rest of your episode details. 2. Magic Mastering. Starting at $6 a month, Magic Mastering automatically levels out and optimizes your audio file like an Instagram filter for your podcast. This tool helps simplify your workflow and guarantees your podcast meets industry best practices. We've got Audio Hijack, which is $64, one-time fee. Audio Hijack lets you record audio from any website or application and saves it as an audio file. Audio Hijack is an excellent option for live streaming with Twitch, StreamYard, or Facebook Live. Now, when I do my podcasts, I download the video and the audio as well, and I post the audio on Spotify. Record your first episode. Recording your episode requires a little preparation on the front end. Follow these 3 steps to set yourself up for success. Write a podcast outline. Rambling is one of the most common mistakes new podcasters make, and the best way to fight the tendency is by writing a podcast script or outline. Even taking a few minutes to jot down a list of bullet points will dramatically improve the flow of your episode. If you're working with a co-host, share this outline with them so you can work on it together. Now, when I did my first episode of the Rock Out Wild Show, I chose the title, What Music Means to Me, and I had already typed this up years before, so I basically read that off and put a little modern spin on it. And besides, I also had On This Day, in film, television, and wrestling and all that sorts of stuff, so I'm reading on the website as I go along, kind of like this main event right here. Pick a good place to record. If possible, record in a quiet room like this room that I'm recording in, with lots of furniture, curtains, rugs, or carpets. Noises bounces off of hard, flat surfaces, so eliminate these where you can. You can also treat your space with the foam panels on the walls. And also, decorum, does the area look good as well? You can sound good, but you also have to look good, especially in your background, where your wall is and things of that nature. Set your recording equipment and software. Connect your mic to your computer or audio recording device. If you have a USB mic, plug the cable into your computer's USB port. If you have multiple hosts, run each mic through an audio interface and plug the interface into the computer. If you have an XLR mic, connect its cable to a USB interface or an external audio recording device, like the PodTrack P4. Once plugged in, go to your audio editing software settings and select your audio inputs. Microphone technique: position your mouth 2 to 4 inches feet away from the microphone for the cleanest sound, but the optimal distance may vary based on your microphone. That is true as well. Me, when I record, I am closer to the microphone, but if I keep away from a distance, it still sounds good. If you notice too many plosives or harsh sibilants in your recordings, the simplest solution is to move off axis from the microphone. Set your mic up to the side, angled slightly towards your mouth. This adjustment prevents bursts of air from hitting the capsule and results in more natural audio. Beginning to recording a test track, try recording yourself, talking at a consistent volume at several different positions. Then listen to the recording to see which position gave you the best audio quality. Don't worry about mistakes, stammers, or silence. You can make your edits in the next step. This is one I don't do because I don't edit, but if you want to edit, go right ahead. I'll go over this right here. Podcast editing is primarily for cleaning up the audio and making basic changes to the structure. Try to keep the process simple. If you focus too much on production, you'll get overwhelmed, which is what I don't do. So I don't get overwhelmed. Follow these 4 tips to streamline your editing workflow. Create an engaging intro and outro. Your podcast intro tells your audience what you're about and the value your podcast brings. When done well, your intro hooks the listeners and convinces them to stick around for the whole episode. You can get a royalty-free music for no cost or purchase your show's intro music through one of these resources: Soundstripe, Audio Jungle, and Storybox. Now, my intro and outro, I worked and tweaked a little bit. I already have my intro, which is good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am just Mike. You are watching and you are listening to episode number 73 of the Rock Out Wild Show. And then I get into, the social medias and the people that you know and things of that nature. And I also put a tagline before I get into that. This is something I added on much later. And my tagline was, "It's not just a show, it is a way of life." And that's what the Rock Out Wild Show is. And as far as my outro goes, that was already set in stone. And it's a phrase that I've been using for a lot of years before I even thought of the Rock Out Wild Show. And that is, get plenty of rest and always do your best. And that phrase has been stuck with me for an incredibly long time, for years. Let's continue on here. Edit for content, then distractions. Edit for content on your first pass and work on noise issue or other distractions on your second go around. If you focus on noise issues too early, you might polish sections you remove later on. Focus on getting the content right first, then double back to fix the audio issues. Then we get into fade between tracks to remove unwanted noise. When you cut sections of audio, you can sometimes get little pops or clicks in the finished product. Use the fade tool at the beginning and end of clips if you run into those issues. Create a punch list. If you don't want to listen to an entire episode multiple times, create a list of audio distractions to check during your second pass. This list can save time and ensure you don't miss anything. And then we get into export audio file. After you edit your podcast, export it as a WAV file. Buzzprout will automatically add ID3 tags and convert your file to the correct file format. If you use another podcast host platform like Spotify for podcasters, which is what I use, you'll need to export your file in the format your hosting the site recommends. Create a podcast artwork. Your podcast cover art is the first thing potential listeners see on Apple Podcasts or social media. Good artwork implies quality content, and 62% of new listeners are more likely to listen to a podcast if they like its cover art. Absolutely. It's something that stands out. Your podcast artwork should follow these technical specifications based on Apple's podcasting artwork requirements: square image, 3000 by 3000 pixels, resolution of 72 dpi, PNG or JPEG file types, and color space RGB. 5 tips to make your podcast artwork stand out. Follow these 5 tips here to make artwork stand out in podcast directories and attract new listeners. Number 1, visually communicate the subject of the podcast. Potential listeners should know what your podcast is about just by looking at your artwork. Too much symbolism or ambiguity can turn people away. Like me, when I chose that blue thumbnail and those waves, I figured, okay, that's perfect. It's simple, straightforward. You know it's a podcast. Design for a variety of sizes. You will use your artwork across several mediums and platforms, so it must look good even at 55 by 55 pixels. Don't use too many words or fonts. Don't use more than 4 words on your cover art. Make sure it's legible, even in small sizes. You should also limit yourself to 2 complementary fonts. Avoid podcast imagery. Just as movie covers don't have pictures of DVDs and TV sets, your podcast cover art shouldn't show podcasting equipment. You don't need to remind people that they are listening to a podcast. Use consistent branding. Your podcast artwork is a part of your overall branding. Feel free to make subtle changes to your artwork to fit various layouts and pages, but the imagery should stay consistent. Tools to design your podcast artwork. This site allows you to create your own podcast cover with your Buzzprout account. Choose from this amount of templates. Edit the templates as well. Using the tool automatically guarantees that your cover art meets the specific requirements for every podcast app. And then it goes into Adobe, Create Cloud Express, and things of that nature, and Fiverr, 99 Designs. Here we go. Set up podcast hosting. A podcast hosting service like Buzzprout stores your audio files and distributes them to podcast platforms so listeners can find your show in directories like Apple Podcasts. I chose not to do Apple Podcasts. I just chose to do YouTube and Spotify. You can try Buzzprout free for 90 days to see how you like it, then follow these steps to set up your account. So it goes into fill out your podcast information in Buzzsprout, upload podcasting artwork and pick in a podcast category, upload your first episode and things of that nature, writing down podcast shows and notes as well. Try to include these things in your show's notes, like helpful links, some information, contact information, short summary of the episode as well. Like when I upload my podcast on Spotify, what I do is I copy and paste what's in the description of my YouTube, format it there, and then type up a little short summary of it. Most major apps support formatting within your episode notes, but not all do. Keep that in mind when you format your episode description text. And then it goes into bonus features in Buzzsprout. I'm not going to go over this, but I'll just steamroll right through this, like Buzzsprout, customable websites and transcripts, things of that nature, the magic mastering, visual sound bites. Get listed in podcast directories. Now, podcast directories like Apple Podcasts are a centralized place for our podcast listeners to find new shows. Getting listed in top podcast directories is a critical part of your podcast marketing strategy. Most of your new listeners will find your podcast through these directories. Like here, there's a list here: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Podcasts Addict, and things of that nature. And then we get into some steps of getting listed in top 3 major podcast directories. Apple Podcasts is one of the world's biggest directories, accounting for 32.5% of all podcast downloads. And there's a step-by-step of how to get into Apple Podcasts. And it says it takes up to 24 hours for a podcast to be approved, as Apple does a human review of every podcast, and you'll receive an email when your show is approved. I'll just go up a little bit so you can see the steps there. Submit podcasts to Spotify. Now, this is what I do after I download mine off of the StreamYard. Spotify launched its directory in 2018, and it's now the largest podcast directory with 34.4% of all podcast downloads. And there's how you get listed on Spotify. And it should be listed on almost immediately. Your episode will be there. Other podcast directories, Podcast Index, Amazon, and Audible, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and Listen Notes. And number 10, launch and grow your show. When it's time to launch a podcast, you have two options. Choose whichever one feels beats best to you. A grand opening is when you build hype for your show before its launch. This approach is used by most podcasters with an existing following. Pick a launching date a few weeks away. Reach out to people who might be interested. That's what I did. That's how I started off the Rock Out Loud show. You can pay for ads, submit to Apple Podcasts, news and noteworthy, or reach out to publications. Strategy 2, the soft open. The soft open is more discreet. With this method, you publish episodes if people are listening, but wait to promote your episodes. This strategy lets you get comfortable, iron out the kinks, and overcome imposter syndrome. When you see your podcast succeed in a lower pressure environment, promoting it more confidently is easier. Imposter syndrome, a lot of people and a lot of podcasters feel like a fraud when they first start. Maybe you dislike your voice or feel inadequate to speak on your topic. It's easy to sideline yourself, but you have a valuable perspective to offer. Know that it is a normal phase of podcasting that gets easier. Marketing tips to grow your listenership. It's time to it's time to get the word out about your podcast. Follow these steps to build a successful podcast marketing strategy. Share your podcast with friends and family. Share your podcast with loved ones. Ask for feedback. You can get their honest opinions and have them leave your first reviews on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or Spotify, what have you. You can grow your listenership by running a podcast promo with any type of software. Here it's Buzzprout. Podcast promos are more effective than traditional ads since they target the right audience for your show. When you create a Buzzsprout podcast promo, you target people who listen to podcasts, find listeners already interested in your podcast topic, reach 10,000 listeners for just $200. Me, I like to do it for free. That's just me. And post episodes on social media. Share podcast content on social media helps you build a connection with your listeners that can be hard to achieve over just audio. You can create visual soundbites for Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, boost tweets on Twitter, and post content on LinkedIn. If you do this right, you could pick up 10 new listeners all on your first few episodes. And if you're comfortable filming yourself, they've seen multiple podcasts go viral after posting original content to TikTok. I choose not to use TikTok, but that's just me. Number 4, join groups and forums. Providing value on forums like Reddit, Quora, or Facebook groups helps direct your people to your podcast. Respond to relevant recent questions you can confidently answer. Include a link to one episode to direct your podcast traffic. Aim to 1 or 2 answers like this for each new episode. Cross promote with other creators. Cross promotion lets you partner with other podcasters and promote each other's shows. This marketing method lets you get your podcast in front of a new audience. You can contact fellow creators on Podchaser or find hosts' contact information on their website or social media. Overcast ads. The Overcast podcast app runs ads exclusively for podcasting. In their experience, they have 100 new subscribers each ad cycle. This is an excellent way to get your first 100 subscribers if you have the money. Create a call to action. A call to action, CTA, is one thing you ask your listeners to do after listening to an episode, and it can be a powerful way to reach your podcasting goals. You can ask your listeners to subscribe to your show and leave a review, like I do at the beginning of each episode. Download a lead magnet, sign up for your email newsletter, just to make sure you limit yourself to one CTA per episode, so don't overwhelm your listeners. And then there's free resources, like there's a community on Facebook, there's a Buzzprout blog and a YouTube channel, like email as well, and celebrate your launch. If you made this far and are ready to publish your episode, we encourage you to submit it soon and celebrate your accomplishment. Launching your first podcast is an achievement, so congratulations from the entire Buzzsprout team. I can't wait to see how far your podcast takes you. That was the step-by-step guide on Buzzsprout on how to start a podcast. And this has been episode number 73 of the Rock Out Wild Show. I'm going to leave you all with a quote from Perspective of the Day, and it goes something like this. Embrace the quiet strength within you as you embark on a new chapter. Starting over again may feel daunting, but remember, it takes courage to step into the unknown and rewrite your story. Trust in your resilience and inner wisdom to guide you through this journey. Each new beginning is an opportunity for growth, self-discovery, and transformation. Embrace the change to create a life that truly reflects your authentic self. Allow yourself to let go of the past and embrace the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Remember, starting over is not a sign of failure, but a testament to your strength and willingness to embrace change. You have the power within you to create a beautiful and new beginning. I am your host, Just Mike. This has been episode number 73 of the Rock Out Wild Show. And on a final note to all of you watching and listening to this all around the world, get plenty of rest and always do your best.